This video is all about how you can single-handedly, safely remove or replace a fence panel located between slotted concrete posts. I've seen a lot of YouTube videos supposedly solving this problem, which range from the complicated to the difficult to requiring an army of helpers and to the just outright dangerous, which qualify for the "don't try this at home" warning. The following method, you may say, is a bit complicated and involves unnecessary expense, but I have a line of 10 6x6 fence panels to lift out, spray paint and replace, so I needed a robust solution. The saying "you don't get something for nothing" is as apt for my method as any other solution and requires some preparation. So what do you need for my method? The main component is a two-stage aluminium ladder. In my case, it was 3 meters or 10 feet long, which I already owned. For those of you without a ladder, it's rather a case of buy or borrow one, borrowing with the proviso that you're going to have to drill some holes in it. For all the items I've used in this method, I've made a list of their cost or estimated cost below this video. The modifications to the ladder are 2 single slot EAI type steel shelving brackets, M6 bolts at ladder top, a mild steel flat bar 5mm thick by 30mm wide by 30cm long, and an eye bolt attachment to the ladder lifting point. I repurposed the 2 shelving brackets by drilling 3 holes so that they sit on top of the ladder. They both have a right angle lip which provides a flat surface to bolt the flat bar to and the attachment point for the eye bolt. The flat bar eye bolt is positioned approximately 15 centimeters out from the front edge of the ladder. This means the eye bolt is vertically directly above the fence attachment bracket. Next, it's the lifting tackle. I have 2 double pulley blocks, a rope to carry out the lifting, a quick link in steel, a carabiner, a shackle which is 8 or 10mm thick, and a bracket to attach to the top of the fence panel to lift it by. This is a recycled 1mm mild steel old shelf bracket, bent and formed to fit around the top of the fence panel with 2 screw holes drilled in the sides with an old repurposed padlock staple bolted on top. This is attached to the fence panel by 2 screws driven through the panel top edge and into the receiving holes of the bracket on the other side. Lastly, we have the ladder to fence attachment parts. A piece of 25 by 25mm by 3mm thick steel box section, approximately 220 centimeters long. This is long enough to span 1 fence panel and its associated concrete posts, as seen in cross section. 2 6-inch G-cramps and 2 M8 U-bolts, which are 100mm long, including a back plate, washers and nuts. That covers the modifications and equipment required, so the next step is the implementation. The first step is to attach the lifting bracket to the top of the fence panel. This is simply a case of using a long screw and screwing through the bracket pre-drilled holes into the fence panel and out the other side, and locating the pre-drilled holes on the other side of the fence bracket at the same time. This does have its moments of frustration when the screw doesn't find the hole on the other side and some re-maneuvering of the screw direction is required. As seen in this clip, patience is definitely the order of the day here. For a newly painted fence panel though, this represents the least damaging way to attach a lifting mechanism. The second step is to bolt the bracing bar to the concrete posts. Doing this on your own can be a bit fiddly, so I used a couple of loops of chains at each end of the bar, some cord would do just as well, and looped them over the top of the concrete post, thus supporting the end of the bar and then looping over the other end. Now adjusting the position of the bar to enable the G-cramp to clamp the bar securely to the concrete post is quite easy, remembering to remove the supporting chain or cord loop before clamping, otherwise this will foul the panel as you try to lift it later. Then clamping the other end of the bar to the other concrete post is an easy task. The next step is to bolt the ladder to the bracing bar. Placing the ladder up against the bar, it should rest there unaided, allowing the positioning and bolting of the U-bolts. The inner ladder stage is bolted and the outer stage is extended upwards to effect the panel lifting. With my ladder, the inner stage is 65mm thick, and with the 25mm bracing bar, that makes 90mm, so the 100mm U-bolts are the right size with a bit of leeway to allow easy bolting together, shown here completed. Now the ladder is bolted to the bracing bar, which being clamped to the concrete post makes a very secure structure and allows one to climb up the ladder to attach the top pulley block and rope via the shackle to the lifting eye bolt at the top of the ladder. Then, using the quick link Carabineer, attach the bottom pulley block to the fence panel bracket so the panel can be lifted. Then lifting the outer ladder stage upwards to produce the necessary lifting height required to lift the fence panel clear from the concrete post channel runs, which will extend the rope line between the two pulley blocks. The final stage is using the pulley system, lifting the fence panel up clear of the post channel and then letting it down, ready to be taken away and painted or replaced. When lifting a whole series of fence panels down a fence run, it is more time saving to firstly bring down the outer ladder stage to ground level, then undo the G-cramps on the concrete posts. The ladder bracing bar structure can now be moved relatively easily along the fence line to the next fence panel, where the G-cramps can be reapplied to the concrete posts and bracing bar, securing the whole structure, and the lifting process can then be simply repeated again. Here's an example of a fence panel at the top of its lift run, ready to come out and down, ready for painting. And next is the same panel after painting, at the top of its lift, ready to drop back into its original position. The painting process can be made relatively easy with the creation of a spraying area, which can be as simple as a tarpaulin draped over a bar and supported against a wall. The fence panels are then supported on a couple of bricks and then can be easily sprayed. Continuing on the single-handed theme, manipulating large or small fence panels, whether wet or dry, can be greatly eased by, I suggest, the use of a lifting jig, which I've devised. This has a mild steel tube 80mm in diameter and 1mm thick, flattened at the bottom end and stick welded to a horizontal mounted piece of 4cm wide Dexian angle iron. There is a handle 25 inches up at the level of one's hand. This is a still from the next sequence to show in greater detail how to use the jig to pick up a fence panel. Grasping the handle from the outside, palm inwards, with 2 fingers either side of the tube, the jig is placed with the outward facing angle edge under the fence panel. Here you can see I've lifted the panel only a couple of inches off the ground and my arm is still straight as I've done the lifting from my shoulder. I've got my fingers under the handle and this is a very easy and comfortable lift and gives me great control over my direction of travel. Here's the sequence showing just how easy it is to move around a fence panel. When the panel is wet and requires turning round for painting the other side or moving to a drying area, your only point of contact with the wet panel is 2 fingers of your right hand supporting the top and the back of your left hand doing the lifting and controlling the direction of travel. This makes for a lot less mess and collateral damage to the newly painted panel, so touching up after you put it down is reduced to almost zero. Well, there you are. I hope you found this method useful and thank you for watching.